Our guest today is Ajoke David. You're welcome, everyone. You're welcome, Ajoke. My name is Prudence Daniels, and I'm Montessori Everywhere African correspondent, and I am co-hosting with Samantha Leader. Samantha, please go ahead and introduce yourself. And,
hi, everyone. Thanks, Prue. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to see so many friendly faces. I recognize a few faces from our previous interview. My name is Samantha. I'm based in South Africa, and I'm co-hosting this with Prudence, who is also Montessori Everywhere correspondent. And I'm super excited for this interview. I think it's going to be amazing. We've got a wonderful guest, so I hope you all enjoy.
Okay, I want Symone to introduce herself before I go on to introduce our guest for today.
Oh, you wanted me to introduce me? I'm just here to host. I'm Symone Davis. I'm part of the Montessori Everywhere team, and I am just being tech person today. And thank you all for all joining us. Over to you, Prue. Take us away.
Okay, so welcome, Ajokes David, to Montessori Everywhere Voices. I'll just give a brief about our wonderful guest today, Ajoke Davis. She is the founder of Aquila Nidus Montessori School in Maryland, Lagos. Ajoke is a Nigerian, and she received her bachelor's degree from the University of Southampton, UK, and an MBA from Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. She launched her teaching career as a secondary school teacher in the UK and returned to Lagos, where she worked as a hospital administrator for 8 years. She returned to her first love, which is to train as a Montessori directress, 6 to 12 years level. And she did a training institute in London. She currently directs an elementary program, a beautiful program, which I have also experienced myself. I've been in her program. Ajoke is going to be telling us a lot about her practice in Montessori today. She is passionate about bringing Montessori to the grassroots in Nigeria and currently working with her staff to provide expectant mothers with timely information on what Montessori offers them. Ajoke enjoys cooking, reading, and she lives in Lagos with her family and 3 dogs. Welcome, Ajoke. I'll let you ride on.
Thank you. It's good to see everyone here. Thank you all for thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, I have no doubt this conversation is going to be awesome today. And I will let Ajoke take on the first question I have for her. Would you like to tell us about how you got into Montessori?
Yes. I initially started off as a traditional teacher when I started my family, worked in some secondary schools in the UK, but then we relocated back home. And at that point, I think I was expecting my 4th child, and I started reading up about different kinds of education because I really believed I had a call, to start a school. So I came across Montessori education, and I decided to take a 0 to 3 course in a training institute in Lagos. I used that learning to bring up my last 2 babies. But I didn't start the school straight away because there were no funds to do so. So I worked with my parents for about 8 years running a hospital. And then they were gracious enough to give us a house. So we moved in and started the school on the ground level of our house. We started with 3 children. And much later, I had the passion to go into the classroom because I was actually working as an administrator when the school started. So I went to London to do my 3 my 6 to 12 course, and then started our elementary classroom. And that's how I got started. It's been a really wild journey from then.
Wow, cool. Yes, so I just like to appeal to everyone to hold up your questions till the end of this. We're hopefully going to open the room for live questions at the end of this, but we just want to hear our guests talk. So I plead with you all, put off your mute your mics if you can, please, and let your video on so we can see your beautiful faces. Okay. Before we go on, Ajoke, would you like to, how would you describe the Montessori education, the pedagogy, to anyone who is totally new to the Montessori practice?
Yes, it's a hands-on approach to education where you have a prepared environment and a trained guide, and the environment offers children the activities that are necessary for their development at different points in time. So we have the 0 to 3 environment, 3 to 6, the 6 to 12, and the 12 to 18 environment. And each of these environments offer children different activities according to their developmental needs. And children get to make choices of work. They're in a mixed age classroom, and they're experiencing, social life differently to what we're used to in traditional education. Montessori education is not centered around the teacher, so the teacher is not, the source of all knowledge. She's rather a guide, and she leads the child to find information for themselves, at least at the elementary level. And in the children's house level, we have the guides helping the children, offering activities that are relevant to the children at times of their sensitive period. So yes, these are, I think, the main differences between Montessori education and traditional education. So someone that is new to the practice would encounter these things.
Okay. I'm glad people who are joining us who are new to Montessori, we have something to take away there. Ajoke, I've seen your environment and I've interacted with your program so much. And I wonder how you have been able to practice authentic Montessori in Nigeria, where they say it's not possible to do this 100%. Would you like to tell us about this?
I am a firm believer that nothing is impossible. If you really want something and you want to make it happen, if you believe it, then you have the push, the drive to actually make it happen. I'm totally passionate about children, and I'm passionate about Montessori. Yes, we have had our obstacles. We're still not where we want to be, but we're on the way. So for me, the biggest challenge was getting parents to have faith in the process. It's very difficult to have faith in the process you haven't seen before, and people have experienced something entirely different. So you get adults saying, oh, are you telling me the education I had was not good? Well, I turned out right, didn't I? So why can't my child have the same thing? So it was about a lot of education, parent education, that is, helping them to see what could be, painting a picture for them. It took a lot of faith for those who started with us. And over the years, people have seen the results and they are convinced that it works. So it's easier now, to practice, and basically good training for the teachers also matters, so that they're able to allay people's fears. I think the concern really is when people in traditional education come up with a lot of arguments and say to parents, oh, why can't your child do this at this age, and parents don't have counter answers. So we help them, to come up with answers of our own. So if someone says to you, oh, my child is writing 1 to 100 at age 3.5 or something, well, you can say, oh, does your child know the 7 continents? Come up with things your children actually does do well and put it to them. And, that way the pressure is lessened.
Wow, so cool. So what is your vision for Montessori work in Nigeria?
My vision is threefold. I hope to see Montessori recognized by the Nigerian government, by a Ministry of Education, as a viable form of education, just like every other education we have in the country, so that our certificates are recognized. I hope to see Montessori training coming to the country at a national level so that teachers can afford it, so it's subsidized, and we can train, the teachers who cannot afford the current type of trainings that we have. I also hope to see Montessori come to the grassroots. That is, the ability for us to offer, our own homegrown Montessori classrooms. So the children on the streets that are hawking can be pulled off the streets and put into the classrooms, and their parents have to pay huge amounts of money. They maybe, just community building, maybe cook for the school or just chip in some way and get these children off the street and into the classroom. Because I believe Montessori is a leveler. It's the key to societal change. When the children are in a Montessori classroom, they tend to develop positive self-esteem, and we will end up with children that actually have an opportunity in life. They have room to explore, their own possibilities instead of growing up and hanging out under the bridge. So those are my visions for Montessori education in Nigeria.
Wow, it's so laudable. Could you tell us some transformational stories about the children you work with or have worked with in the past? Talking about the child, the universal child of their time, place, and culture, as Montessori will put it.
There are many of them. Well, I'll choose two. There was a boy, he was 5.5, came into our school and he couldn't read. And he had really, really low self-esteem and very poor social. I think in his past school, he had been told, oh, he couldn't do things, so saying things like, oh, I can't do that because my teacher says I'm slow or I'm stupid or things like that. So when he came into the environment, it was a lot of grace and courtesies. It was very difficult for him to make friends at first because he would hit other people and, just his behavior was pretty unfriendly. But after being in our environment for about 2 years, he really started making friends. He could communicate his feelings. He had learned to trust us. And so he would come and check in the morning and unload because he had a very troubled home. So he needed to just talk about things before his day could start for him. He learned to trust that adults, can be trustworthy. He learned that he was somebody worthy of respect and he could give respect to other people too. That was, for me, a huge one. And I felt very humbled to be part of his transformation. I remember the story of a girl who was also 5, but she was so afraid to make mistakes that she wouldn't try. So I guess maybe the expectation was really high for her at home. So you would have her sit there, just staring at the wall. She wouldn't do it because she was so scared of making mistakes. So after being in an environment as well, most of us are aware, mistake is our friend. Error is your friend. And so she heard this over and over again. Error is your friend. So if she spilled things, she would freeze, waiting for someone to scream on her. And she didn't get that. Slowly and surely, she started to unfold. And after about 3 months, I really couldn't recognize her. I was so surprised because indeed it was a surprise. The child I saw was not the one that was presented to us 3 months before. And I guess she showed herself. That's the beauty of Montessori, because children tend to show themselves once they can trust the environment and the people in the environment. And it was a very beautiful showing. The mom called me one day and said, "What are you people doing to my child? We were having breakfast and I picked 2 eggs." And she actually lectured me and said to me, "Mommy, I think you should be considerate of everyone in the community. You can only have 1." So both the parents and the children actually do change, because for a lasting change to occur, there has to be a change at home as well, and in the way the parents actually see and deal with the child. And it's really, really beautiful when this happens.
That's so sweet. Okay, so what impact has your Montessori experience had in your own children?
For me, I think the most impactful one was preparing the environment. During my training, my trainer shared an analogy with us. She said to us to imagine we visited a country, and in that country they were all giants, like 10 times our sizes, and their house, had giant chairs and tables and everything. And so on this visit, every time we wanted to sit, we had to scramble unceremoniously, and clamber into the seats and, find our way up the tables. And it was a very graphic picture. And it was really, really humbling to imagine that is the situation that our children come into. The homes are not prepared for them most of the time. So after my training, I decided, okay, with my last 2 children, they would have a prepared environment. So they had their own child-sized sofas, child-sized tables, and things like that. Another change that happened for me was the ability to observe children and learn from them, because they're speaking to us all the time, but maybe not in the language that we're used to. So learning to observe, I picked up a lot of things that were really important. And Montessori helped me also to be brave enough to give my children a voice, because a lot of us grew up without having a voice, and the adult was always right. Whether they're right or not, it really doesn't matter. You don't speak, you don't say certain things. So for me, it was a huge one, being able to give my children a voice and listen to their opinions and, try and see things from their point of view. It was a real game changer for me.
And were there resistance, like external resistance, in the course of chatting this? Going through this with your own children?
Yes, definitely.
I imagine.
I mean, in our social circles, you hear things like, why are you allowing your child to talk like that? People felt very bad sometimes when the children challenged them. So sometimes the children would say things like, well, that's not fair, you shouldn't speak to me like that. Why would you expect me to treat you this way and you're treating me this way? And adults are not really used to that in our environment. They see it as being rude.
The culture, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that was a major resistance, and when you say, oh, really, but is it fair to treat the child that way? Shouldn't we really just treat the child the way we expect the child to treat us in return? And you get that look like, you are crazy, girl. Where did you grow up in? Are you not Nigerian? So yes, that kind of resistance.
So I wonder how your parents were able to manage this. I mean, how did it go between your parents and this cultural struggle? Let me put it that way. From the school.
I think, yes, my parents have grown to see that times are changing, and the way maybe children were brought up 30, 40 years ago, those methods cannot really apply strictly that same way now. So they're open, to discussions with the children, and they talk to them. It can be difficult because sometimes I'll get calls saying, I think you need to caution your children. Did she really say that to grandma? And I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. Sorry. So you have to pacify a lot, as well as when I think also the older they grow, you also have to explain to them, the society we live in, the cultural aspects of our society, because they need to also understand that. And sometimes they need to understand that, yes, what is being done is not right, but I can let it go. They need to be able to let some things go and not fight everything out. But in themselves, they must not be made to feel less than who they are. As long as they know who they are and they're old enough to make this judgment and balance. For my teenage girls, I have that discussion with them, that I do know that that's unfair, but sometimes it's very difficult for adults to change their ways because they've been used to those things for so long. It doesn't mean they're right, but you can kind of just let it go, because you will come across this a lot.
I'm curious to ask though, in the course of this cultural struggle, did you have any parents take out their child from your school just because they think you were spoiling them, or they were rude, or your method was not good?
No, we didn't have that, because we made sure that we have a strong parent education culture. So our parents understand, the method, because a lot of the discipline method is actually based on Alder's work, positive discipline. So I am a believer of positive discipline, and it makes sense. It's actually very logical. So unless you're not doing the right thing, I think you would not come to that kind of situation where someone will say you're spoiling children, because clearly there's no spoiling going on. It's freedom and limits, responsibilities, so they understand that discipline is enacted when you give a child a freedom, and they have to be responsible for those freedoms, and parents practice this at home as well.
Yeah, that's Montessori in action. I really like the way you took that question, because I know in Africa there's a lot going on about children being disciplined, children being corrected, spoken to in a way that it's totally opposite of what we believe in Montessori, or what we practice in Montessori. And I think more of this enlightenment needs to go on in the Montessori circle within Africa to help us navigate this terrain better. Yeah, so I'd like to ask, what are some of the lessons you have learned from your Montessori journey? In other words, how has your Montessori experience changed you?
I think the most profound changes came, and it's an ongoing one, I must say. Our work as our spiritual transformation, basically, always going back to look at yourself and ask yourself, what is it inside of me that is actually an obstacle to the child's development? What is it inside of me that is stopping me from understanding the child? And as I find those things, I work really hard to take them out. Okay, like I have an amazing assistant in the classroom, and we do this every day. At the end of the day, we sit down and say, okay, like, did you notice anything in my attitude was really rude or wrong, and we would give each other feedback, really honest feedbacks. And, there are times you have to deal with difficult emotions, around certain children and certain circumstances. And you really have to look into yourself and ask yourself over and over again, why am I here? What is my goal? What is my purpose? And those questions bring you back. And I think it's a daily work of slaying your ego and just being humble. It's a daily process. Most of all, I think for me, my definition of love has been totally transformed, because many times we think, we do know we love the child, actually, because if you don't love the child, you probably wouldn't have the children or be in a school. So the question of loving the child is not disputed. Love is there. But the question is love really enough? Love without knowledge, love without understanding could be dangerous. So for me, the most profound change has been in educating my love.
Wow.
The way Joel Austin put it. Yes.
Very profound, very deep. And self-reflecting on that, I think every one of us should take on that path. Just look back, take a deep breath, reflect, and rediscover ourselves. Hey, let's go to Nigeria and the ecosystem, Montessori in Nigeria. What has changed in the Montessori ecosystem in Nigeria from the time of your training, like 10 or more years ago, and now? What is the future looking like?
The most profound
So I'm asking three questions in one, or two questions in one. What has changed in Montessori ecosystem in Nigeria from the time of your training and now? And what is the future looking like? So two questions in one.
Okay. So from the time I took first training, 0 to 3, and now, even when I finished my elementary training, and now, the most profound change that has happened was the establishment of the nation for Montessori in Nigeria, because certain trainings are only available outside the country. So when the Foundation for Montessori Education in Nigeria was established, naturally the training center was opened and trainers were brought in to the country, and AMI trainings are made available to us in Nigeria, so you don't have to travel out of the country to get the trainings. I see more of the trainings happening. We've had the 3 to 6 trainings, but I see us having the 0 to 3 trainings, having the 6 to 12 trainings, and ultimately this will impact, the schools, the Montessori schools as well, because the more trained teachers you have, the better the schools will be, and people will be more ready to open up elementary programs, because there are very few of those at the moment. And hopefully we would even have the adolescent training too. So yes, I hope that answers the question.
Looking forward to that. What do you wish you could change in Montessori practice within your country and maybe globally?
I really wish there could be a kind of standardization, in Nigeria, because as we all know, Montessori is not it's a name that is free and open for everyone to use. So you would see Montessori school on 1,001 schools, maybe out of 1,000, you might find 2 authentic practices, and it confuses people. It's not fair on the children that experience the wrong end of those kind of practices. So I wish we could have some kind of standardization going on, in the country. And I guess it's not only Nigeria that is seeing that as well. There are other countries out there in the world that face the same problem. So yes, that would be my biggest wish.
Wow. What would be your advice? Now, rounding up to open up for questions. So I guess we can take questions. You can put them in the chat, or you just raise your hand and we will call you in to ask you. So Ajoke, who is just starting out in their Montessori journey, like a beginner?
I would tell the person to open their minds, because it's an exciting thing every single morning. It's a new day, you learn new things. They should open up their minds and take that spiritual preparation very seriously, because I believe if you do that, you will be amazed at what the children show you. That would be my biggest advice to someone starting their journey. Self-reflection, educating themselves, not just pedagogically, but in terms of their attitudes and removing obstacles from their minds. Becoming childlike, not childish, but childlike in our approach to children. Children's love their love is perfect. They're ever forgiving. Every day is a new day for them. They don't hold grudges. They give us new chance every day. And their love is kind. Their love is patient. Their love is enduring. So for us too, for everyone in Montessori, starting the journey or however long you've been in there, if we can just aspire to those characteristics of love that the children effortlessly display, it would be a great beginning.
Okay. I said, you make me want to cry. Like every one of us should be like these children, because children, they're just so open. They're so loving and so accepting, trusting, So for a newbie, open your heart, just deep dive into Montessori. No fright of, am I going to be able to do this? Or am I going to learn some things I wouldn't like? Just open your heart and sip it in. Wow, such an amazing moment with you, Ajoke. I like to bring in the audience to ask their questions. Sammy, do we have questions ready to go?
I haven't seen any questions come up yet. I've just seen a comment from someone. Can I have a number or a contact for further details?
Oh, okay.
So we will include that. We will include that in the video, and we'll make sure that everyone receives details to for Ajoke's school details.
Oh, okay, sure.
We will send that out. We will send out Ajoke's school details.
Okay, so if you have a question out to the audience, you can just raise your hand or put it in the chat and we'll bring you on. We still got about 15 minutes.
Katrina has her hand up, Prue. Katrina,
Okay.
do you want to unmute yourself? Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the presentation. This is one of my dreams come true, to learn about Montessori around the world. My mom was a Montessori teacher and I'm a Montessori teacher. So everything you're saying, I completely agree. I wondered if you could, I wondered if you could explain a little bit more about, you said there's been a big process for you working with parents to open their minds. Could you touch on a few things that you found that has been very helpful? And maybe some of those, a few more details about some of those cultural shifts that you've noticed happening?
Okay. So the biggest issue has been around discipline and, the way we speak to children. So the resources I have used with my parents that have been really useful were the positive discipline books, and there's this other one, Love and Logic. Yeah, so those have been really useful. Then also having a kind of round table meeting with parents. And if you know some of them, like after a while, you actually really get to know some of them and you know who's doing what and what's working. So getting those people on board to share, what they're doing at home, their struggles and what they're doing that works is really empowering for parents, because it's not coming from, oh, my child's teacher. It's coming from, oh, another parent like myself, she did that and it worked. Okay, I'll try it. We tried book clubs as well, where we kind of send out chapters, people read, or we listen to audiobooks, and then we come and discuss. We tried this, it didn't work, what's going on? And we have class-based meetings as well. So we have whole school parent educations, but we have class-based. So all the 0 to 3 parents will meet and they will deal with 0 to 3 issues, toileting, things like that. So things that are specific for each group as well, 3 to 6 and then 6 to 12. So 6 to 12, we have issues like, oh, my child is just rude. She just talks anyhow. So when the parents go through the characteristics of, the second plane children, and they realize that, oh, right, these are human tendencies, and, this is how the child is able to express himself, and this is what is going on in the child's mind. They don't see it as offensive anymore. They feel empowered and they know how to answer the child. This child is a reasoning child. You need to just reason with them. So when they say to you, but why, they're not being rude. That's the cultural thing. And that's the shift that has to happen. So when a child says, but why, many parents will say, how dare you question me? Are you talking back to me there? You're asking me why? In my own days, I can't ask my father why. Who are you? That kind of thing. But once the parent knows that, oh, wow, this child is a reasoning being and he has to be given logical explanations, and you do give those logical explanations and they see that that's it, it's done. The child is satisfied, then they're encouraged to work with the child's developmental needs. And then the transition sometimes can be confusing for parents. So they've been parenting this child from 0 to 6, and they're used to treating them a certain way. So you need to start giving those transition educations, that, hey, your children are going to change soon. These are the things that will be showing up. You should prepare for it and everything. They find that helpful. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
I guess you went deep into that question. Yeah. Okay, good. I was just waiting for you to respond. Okay. Do we
Does
have
anyone
another
else have any
question?
questions? Any more questions?
Good evening. Yeah, my first time being here.
Welcome.
Thank
What's
you.
your name, sorry?
Omar.
Hi.
Yeah, please, I want to find out if you've not started Montessori and you want to start, how do you really get started? How can you get started?
Okay. I think the starting point, ma'am, will be to go for a training course. That's the starting point. So, where are you? Are you in Nigeria or outside Nigeria?
Nigeria.
Okay, so you can contact the FMEN, the Foundation for Montessori Education in Nigeria. Someone is on the chat group. They will put their number and their address there. I think that's the first step to take. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Omo, does that answer your question?
I'm trying to see if I can get the number promised to be given on the chat box.
Or you
Okay.
can just
It's
check
been
Google.
said, or you can just contact any of us if you know any of us, and then we take it up from there.
Okay, all right.
Can I put my question forward?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Radhika from India. So I have a question. So how do you give art to an elementary child? That's my question. How do you give
Okay.
art lessons to the child? That's my question for an elementary child.
Okay. How do we give art to elementary children?
Yes.
So yes, so you walk through the elements of art. You start from
Yes.
the elements
Yes.
and the principles, and then we give them in groups.
Okay.
So I give in small groups my art lessons. So whatever it is.
Basically, how do you start with? With what do you start with the art? Is there some sort of a guidance for you that how to start the art classes or
Yes,
some
your
pencil
album.
drawings?
Yeah, your album will tell you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, the album will tell you the lessons you will give, and you build up on those things. So usually we'll start with things like lines, different types of lines. That's a good starting point. How to use the paintbrush, how to take care of the paintbrush and things like that.
Okay. 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 Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to yes.
So Prue, there's a question here. Ajoke, how do you integrate older children from traditional schools into the Montessori philosophy since they missed out on the foundational stage?
Okay, so most of our children enter the elementary from our Montessori 3 to 6 program, but we have some that come from non-Montessori schools. So the trick is to know your ratios. Yes, so you're one trained teacher in a classroom with 30 children and an assistant. You mustn't take on too many because they would need special attention. So ideally, they will come in phased entry. So they're not going to start on the same day with everybody else. They're probably going to start school a week or two before other people come in. And that gives you a chance to start giving those, preparatory lessons. How do we move in the classroom? How do we carry things? All those grace and courtesies, they have to come in. Now, these children are not going to be choosing work like your children that have come from the children's house. So they're going to need a little bit more support. We're learning to choose activities because that's a different thing for them entirely from what they're used to. But I find that within a year or so, they integrate nicely. If they come in 7, 8, they integrate nicely. I've not tried a 9-year-old yet, but I guess it should be the same thing.
I guess it would also really depend on the child as well, wouldn't it? Because
exactly,
some children will find it much easier to adapt depending on maybe what they've experienced in terms of their parenting, or, but yeah, it would be a process, I guess. So we've got
I had a child from traditional school who was so afraid of school. A child from traditional school into my Montessori program that was so afraid of school because of the method that was used for him in traditional. When he joined us, he couldn't read and he was totally new to the environment. So what we did in our own case, we had to transition him for a period of 1 month and did all that Ajoke had mentioned. And then we moved him into the elementary program. That really worked well because now he's doing excellently well. Yeah, I just wanted to chip that in. Go ahead, Sammy.
No, that's great. We've got Kunbi has a hand up.
Hi, yes, I am. I was very interested in Ajoke's her process of having a book club and a forum for parents. And I just wanted to know what the kind of uptake was as a percentage of the number of parents that could get involved. How many parents actually took that opportunity up to educate themselves, to do the readings and all of that.
Okay, so for the book club, it was an online thing. So we had close to 20-something parents turn up. I'm not really sure how many people actually listened to the audiobooks or read it, but people were interested and, they did chip in. And the physical book clubs, those ones, very fewer number of people were interested. And I've had parents who, would borrow books from the library and, we would chat about those books one-on-one. In Nigeria, I won't say, yes, maybe our type of parents, they're really busy people. Most of them are bankers and things like this. So the challenge of getting to read books. So we tried the audio, and a lot of people responded well to that. But for the physical books, you get 1 or 2 parents that would actually take the books, read them, and turn up and discuss with you and try out those things and come back and discuss again. And you get people that are interested. I guess those kind of people are just readers naturally anyway. So let's say about 30% of the population would go along with the book club.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I have a second question. Is that okay? And it was about how do children in an authentic Montessori, from an authentic Montessori background, how do they transition into traditional secondary school?
Okay. Usually, the children are very well focused. From the children that we've interviewed, because our oldest children are about 10, so they've not gone into secondary school yet, but I've met other children that went to Montessori schools and transitioned to traditional secondary schools. They say things like, it's really interesting that they're not so kind to each other. That's a difference they find. But they're able to self-pace themselves. They can study properly. They do extremely well socially too. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sorry, I was muted. Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay, Sammy, any more questions?
Yes, there's a question from Katrina here. I'll read it out to you. How do the children prepare and have meals together during the day? In Canada, the government mandates hot meals for all children aged 3 and under. So how do the children prepare for their meals?
Okay, in Nigeria, people have a choice. So we actually used to mandate hot meals for children, but parents, some parents prefer to bring in their own meals, and, we listened. So when the meal is served, for those who are eating school foods, the other children bring out their food and they're given plates. They put their food into their plate, and they sit to eat. Now, before COVID, we used to put together tables and have, everybody sit together and eat. But during this COVID period, people actually eat at their own tables. Quite a few things have changed. So usually you can sit anywhere you want. But because of COVID, everybody has a table to themselves. So you would sit at your table and eat your meals. And we try to make it as social as possible within those limitations.
Yeah. And a second question from Katrina. For parent education communication, do you use any social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram?
Okay. So we have our parent groups on WhatsApp. So we do communicate on WhatsApp, and then we use Zoom. But that's what we do so far. We've not tried other
Instagram or Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah. And then one more from Katrina. In Nigeria, do you do any standardized tests? A lot of Montessori schools in Canada participate in standardized tests to appeal to parents.
There are standardized tests at the end of primary school. So by year 6, there's the common entrance, the national common entrance that children do take before you go on to secondary schools. So yes, our children will be taking those. Some schools also do British exams, like the British, the primary exams that are done. Yes, at the end of year 6. So some schools register children to do that.
Okay.
And sorry, just to clarify then, when you say the end of year 6, is that the child is age 6, or you mean grade 6? Like they're 12 years old?
Grade 6, yes.
Okay. I know one of those funny Montessori things where some say primary and some say junior. I have no idea what age group.
Yeah.
Thank you. So age 12, they would write a common entrance exam.
Yes.
To get into secondary school.
Yes.
And how long is secondary school?
It's a 6-year. If it's our national WIEC program, but if it's the IGCSE program, it's 5 years. And then those children usually go on to do A-levels or an AS or IB, or some of them do a foundation course and then go on to university.
Okay. So secondary would end
of the school. Because most parents most parents go to private schools. So private schools have a choice. You can run either both the WIEC and the IGCSE, or just the IGCSE or the WIEC. So that would determine the number of years your secondary program will run for. But on average, 5 to 6 years.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
One more question that I've just seen come up. Do you employ traditional teachers, Ajoke?
We employ Montessori trained teachers to be our lead teachers. And because we're actually on the program, the consultation program that is being run by the foundation, the FMEN, the Foundation for Montessori Education in Nigeria. So we try for our lead teachers to be AMI trained as well, because we're going through the global accreditation program. For our assistants, we prefer to employ someone that has not gone through the traditional education, so a non-teacher, put it that way.
Yeah.
It's easier to convert a non-teacher than to convert a traditional teacher. It's an uphill task. It's it's really uphill, except the person wants to be converted. So for assistants, we would rather have someone who is not a teacher, but is extremely passionate about children and very intelligent and flexible. And then, they're doing something they love, they will learn it. But for our lead teachers, they have to be Montessori trained.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for sparing your time to come today. If we don't have any more questions, we may just want to close this meeting. Ajoke, I want to say a very big thank you to you for being our guest today and for telling us your story, the Montessori story in Nigeria. I can see the chat is bubbling. Lots of people say they've been inspired. They've gained so much. And they're very happy with your presentation. Thank you so much, Ajoke. Thank you, Sammy, my partner in Africa for Montessori Everywhere. Thank you for doing this with me this time. And we'll keep doing it again and again, God helping us. Thank you, Symone, for your tech support and for giving us the chat room. Thank you for the Montessori Everywhere work you do. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We'll have the MontessoriEverywhere.org website. You can follow us and you can join in all our events. Every month, there's a Montessori Everywhere event. So please sign up, subscribe to our email so you can get all our events. Also, where is a movement that was in Dr. Maria Montessori's birthday in August last year, 2020, and it's become just from a birthday celebration to a movement. Every country has to be reached. Already we have representatives in 6 continents across the globe. We're looking forward to the last one, Antarctica. And so if you want to be our representative in Antarctica, you're welcome. And we employ everyone to join us every time we have these meetings. It just helps us to deepen our practice, to better serve the child, to answer the call to humanity and who are the future of tomorrow. They're creating the adults that we are. Thank you, everyone, once again. And God bless you.
Thank you, Ajoke.
Thank you.
Please feel free to unmute yourself and say bye.
Bye. Thank you.